Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast. Happy spring. It's officially spring. And that excites me because here in Vancouver, we get a lot of rain. So the fact that we are getting some of these days broken up with some, lighter jacket days and some sunshine. Oh, it's so wonderful. Sun is streaming in my office right now while I'm recording this. It just feels so luxurious. What else has been going on? My baby is almost 10 months old already, and I just feel like time has been passing so quickly, but we have been filling it here with a bunch of fun stuff and prep and things that you are going to hear about on the next episode of the podcast. So definitely stay tuned for that. But today's episode of the podcast is something I'm very excited to share this with you because I know for a fact if you implement what I'm teaching you today, this one shift you can make to knock out afternoon energy dips, you are going to feel so much better in the afternoon. Can you imagine what your day in your business would feel like if you didn't crash at 2 p.m. or 3 p.m.? Like I have so many clients that'll say to me, like, I can make it till 1 in the afternoon and then everything after that, I just have to put like admin work or like things that don't require a lot of focus or attention because I just feel so tired or so unfocused. And this strategy that I'm going to teach you today, I've actually heard about this strategy and I've known about it for well over a year, but it was something I was always like, yeah, I'm probably okay. That doesn't really apply to me. Or yeah, I'll apply it later. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to hear this strategy today and your brain is going to be like, I don't know if that's for me. Can I ask you something? In the spirit of biohacking and experimenting and having fun with your health, can you please try it for at least 1 week? And then let me know on Instagram, I'm at Tanessa Shears, what the difference has been for you because it has been so prolific for me. And the topic today, we're going to be talking about how to use caffeine strategically to eliminate the afternoon energy crash. Now, if you've been a longtime podcast listener, you'll know that episode 16 was called the Coffee Hack to Rewire Your Brain. And in that podcast, there's going to be a tiny bit of overlap, but it's going to be different because that episode talks mostly about how to reset the receptors in your brain so that caffeine can have a larger effect. Because if you drink coffee long enough, you don't have the same response as you did when you first started drinking it, right? You kind of build up, tolerance isn't the right word, but it gives you the right idea. Like it needs more caffeine to get that same original kick. So that episode is all about resetting the receptors. And it's all about the research that shows that absence of caffeine or 5 days can actually boost the effects of it. There's other strategies too. If you want to listen to that, go listen to episode 16. This is a different caffeine strategy. This is something I have been extensively testing with myself, and I have invited 3 clients on board to test this as well, and they are noticing the difference too. It is a nuance about caffeine use. Because I want to set the stage here. Here's what I used to notice. Like I used to wake up and do everything I thought was right to set me up for a consistent day of stable energy, right? Like I did everything I could to make sure my brain was at its highest level. So in my business currently, my heaviest call days are Mondays and Wednesdays, and I have just over 6 hours of calls and clients on each of those days and a lighter call day on Thursday, right? So on those days when I woke up, I need my brain to be very clear and sharp because I want my 6th client of the day to have the same impactful version of me as the first client of the day. And if I'm experiencing that afternoon energy crash, I don't want that to affect my clients, right? So I do these special routines in the morning to really get in the game, be clear, and be focused. So what I do is I'd get up in the morning, I'd grab a cup of coffee, while checking some emails. I'd work out. I'd go out for a walk in the sun. If it was sunny, which is like 10% of the time in Vancouver. I would jump in a cold shower and while I was doing all these things, I'd be priming my brain with podcasts, things that inspired me, things that made me want to show up better, all things designed to wake up my brain by affecting my circadian rhythm, right? And I'd have a wicked morning and I'd be like, yeah, I'm on fire, those kind of days. But then I'd get this like weird little brain crash just on those days. And I was like, this is weird. And then I tried doing things like I'd have a cup of black tea later in the morning. And it was weird because I was like, what's going on? I'm doing all of the things, but I don't feel like this weird energy shift on the other days. What the heck is going on? Then I implemented the hack that I am about to tell you. And like I said, even though I heard about it a year ago, I am now kicking myself for not starting it sooner. And I have been well into a month of experimenting with this now. And this is not something I made up. This is actually something I heard on Andrew Huberman's podcast multiple times. And I gotta say, after implementing it, I now notice an instant, day I began implementing it, change in the stability of my energy. So it wasn't like I had more energy. It was that it was stable all day. And it was wonderful. And the afternoons feel like smooth sailing. And I get to the end of a day, like 5 p.m., I've had 6 or 7 calls that day, and I feel good. And I love this. And after testing it, I'm going to share it with you now, right? And that one shift is the topic of today's podcast. So before we jump in, I want to say that this episode, I'm going to sponsor my own episode today. It's sponsored by the Becoming Limitless program. This is the go-to program for 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs who want to double their energy and double their focus with my 12 Becoming Limitless protocols. This is a 3-phase program for entrepreneurs who know that working less might not be an option, but you still want to feel better. You want to make time for your health, and you want to feel more focused instead of distracted, and like you have to fight off that afternoon energy crash. The entrepreneurs that I work with are ready to take action and get one-on-one coaching and feedback on their health, their mindset, their stress, and their life with a proven system that worked for dozens of 6, 7, and even 8-figure entrepreneurs. So if you are wanting help doubling that energy, feeling focused in the morning, and being more efficient with your time so that you can get back to spending time with your family, doing stuff you love, I would love you to send me a DM on Instagram. I'm at Tanessa Shears, or you can head to my website at tanessashears.com/call and book in a consultation call to see if we are a good fit. All right, let's talk about the goal of today. Today, how this is going to flow is I'm going to share the hack, and then I'm going to share why it works. Because this is how my brain works. My brain, if I hear something, I'm like, yeah, okay. But if I hear why it works, I'm like, oh, that's good. I've got to do it. And if the science that I'm going to be sharing with you coming up, if it feels like it goes over your head and you're like, what are we talking about? Just take the change and you're good. You don't even ever need to know why. Just trust that it works. So here it is, all right? When you wake up in the morning, instead of having coffee first thing or within that 15 to 30 minutes of when you wake up, don't have your first caffeine dose, and this includes pre-workouts, black teas, coffees, special coffees, all those things. Delay it for 90 to 120 minutes after you wake up. That's an hour and a half to 2 hours after you wake up, all right? So I know you're hearing this, and right now you're like, oh, that sounds like torture. But I'm going to tell you, the hardest part about doing that was the weirdness of the routine change. And to be real, like what to do with my hands. So I'm in the phase of life right now where I have a 3-year-old and an almost 10-month-old. So one of my most productive work blocks is the first thing when I wake up. And I do wake up around 5 a.m. So I was always in the habit of just grabbing a cup of coffee, sitting down and getting to work. But now it's like I sit down and I get to work, and I do notice I'm like, what do I do with my hands? What am I supposed to be drinking? And I have been drinking a lot more water in the morning, especially with, a bit of sea salt added in there to help rehydrate, which I think is also part of the solution. But the weirdest part has been the delay. What I was expecting when I was like, okay, I'm going to try this, I was expecting to get headaches and feel super tired until I had a cup of coffee. But that's not actually what happened. I actually felt completely normal. And then the effects of the caffeine were so much better on my energy stability. So waiting to have your caffeine is the hack. An hour and a half to 2 hours post wake up, and it will stabilize that afternoon energy dip and completely knock it out in my case and the case of many of my clients. So if that's the hack you want to know, you're done. You can close the podcast here. But in spirit of being an experimenter and a biohacker, I'd love to tell you why it works. So let's zoom in on your brain. In your brain, you have a ton of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are just chemicals that are messengers. So they provide information from one cell to another cell, right? Neurotransmitters. So you have a neurotransmitter in your brain called adenosine. Now, when you wake up in the morning, you have very, very low levels of adenosine. Adenosine, I want you to think of it kind of as like the sleepy neurotransmitter, so that the more adenosine is in your brain, the more tired you feel. So naturally, when you wake up in the morning, your adenosine is at its lowest. Now, you go throughout the day, you get ready in the morning, drop your kids at school, you start working in your business, you get through a couple calls, meetings. All during this time, your brain and your body are steadily producing adenosine, and it is slowly building up over time. And as it begins to build up, it binds with these receptors. Now, the more of these receptors that have adenosine in it, the more naturally tired you are going to feel. So by the end of the day, these receptors in your brain are fully occupied by adenosine. And you are going to feel the most tired all day, right before you go to sleep. Totally makes sense, right? This is called sleep pressure. The amount of pressure on your brain to go to sleep increases throughout the day because of adenosine buildup. Pretty cool, right? So in order to understand how do we get rid of adenosine, the main way that we get rid of adenosine is by having enough quality sleep. So while we sleep at night, adenosine is removed from all of those receptors and broken down, so that when you wake up in the morning, adenosine is low again and you should feel alert first thing in the morning. So we got adenosine so far. It's a sleepy neurotransmitter, and the more of it there is, the more tired you feel. Now, here's something interesting. Caffeine, the molecule of caffeine, fits into the same receptor as adenosine. So when you drink caffeine, caffeine takes priority in those receptors that would normally be occupied by adenosine. So essentially, caffeine blocks adenosine from being able to bind with those receptors and make you feel tired. This is how caffeine makes you feel alert. Caffeine binds with the adenosine receptors, prevents adenosine from making you feel tired, right? So the only problem is that when the caffeine begins to wear off, it's not like the adenosine wasn't building up the whole time anyways. It was still building up. But now the caffeine comes out and you have a rush of adenosine coming in, right? And that's naturally why some people like to reach for a second and a third coffee throughout the day to keep themselves going. This is an excellent reason, if you are finding that this is you, to go back and listen to episode 16, because you will learn how to either modulate the amount of caffeine you're using, or how to make it more effective. But essentially, what we want to understand is that caffeine blocks adenosine from feeling tired. Now, caffeine has something called a half-life. So what that means is that in this amount of time, so caffeine's half-life is 6 hours approximately. It varies from person to person. In 6 hours, half of the amount of caffeine in your cup of coffee is still actively blocking those receptors. So this means if you had a coffee with 200 milligrams of caffeine, which is very standard for a cup of coffee, 100 milligrams is still active 6 hours later. So let's just use this as an example. Let's say you had a cup of coffee at 10 a.m. in the morning. Half of the caffeine is still active at 4 p.m. and a quarter of that caffeine is still active at 10 p.m. that night. So this is why I do advocate for making sure that you finish any caffeine intake at least 10 to 12 hours before bedtime. So if you go to bed at 10 o'clock, I would say 10 a.m. would be the cutoff if you do not want it to affect your sleep quality. So the amount of deep sleep and the amount of REM sleep you get. And yes, this varies person to person, but no one is able to have caffeine in the evening and have it not affect the sleep quality. You may still be able to fall asleep, but you are likely affecting the amount of deep and REM sleep you get. And this is likely going to affect the quality of your sleep, which affects the adenosine breakdown, which means you wake up tomorrow feeling like you need more coffee again. All right. Does that make sense? So what does this have to do with delaying caffeine 90 to 120 minutes post wake up? Well, when you wake up in the morning, adenosine is at its lowest, but it's not fully zeroed out. And what we want to end up doing is getting that adenosine as low as possible so that we can be at maximal alertness during the day. Now, here's the problem. When you wake up in the morning, if you have that caffeine right away, it blocks those adenosine receptors and it blocks your ability to fully clear out adenosine. So you have that, let's say, chunk of adenosine that wasn't fully cleared out last night, especially if you didn't get enough sleep or quality sleep, and then you block it with caffeine. So not only when the caffeine wears off do you get the regular amount of adenosine that's been accumulated just dump in and make you feel tired, but you have all of this backup caffeine or adenosine that you never cleared out that's doing double duty on making you feel tired. So what's happening is that when you have that caffeine first thing in the morning, it basically exaggerates the fatigue that your brain feels, that afternoon energy dip that happens in the afternoon. And we don't want that, right? We want to make sure that we are able to zero out or bottom as low as we can the amount of adenosine we start our day with. And there are 3 ways to do that. Number 1, you can work out. Now, why is this? When you work out in the morning, it increases your body temperature and it also increases the hormone cortisol. That is the stress hormone that we all produce when we start working out, because working out is a stressor on the body. When that cortisol increases, that helps to zero out adenosine. So that is a wonderful reason why you should have your workouts in the morning, is it really helps zero out that adenosine and helps carry you through the day with stable energy. On the topic of cortisol, we come to our second way to zero out adenosine. It is with light. So by going out as early as you can and getting your eyes exposed to daylight, even if it is cloudy, sunlight's preferred, but it's not always going to be the case that you can have that. By exposing your eyes to light, it continues to boost that natural cortisol in the morning. Now, when you hear cortisol, I know we think of the stress hormone, but I don't want you to think of it and be like, oh, this is terrible, I'm already stressed out. No, cortisol at the wrong time of day is the problem. We want a boost in cortisol in the morning because that is what causes us to feel alert and focused. It's actually what wakes us up from sleep. If you don't have a cortisol boost in the morning or you miss it by sleeping through it, you will feel groggy. We want that cortisol boost to happen. So by exposing our eyes to light in the morning, it actually enhances and further drives up that morning cortisol boost, which begin to zero out adenosine. So you can see why something like a morning walk or a morning run outside is a double hit. You're increasing cortisol through movement and you're increasing it through light through the eyes. This is awesome. So I said there were 3, right? So 1, workout. 2, get your eyes out as early as you can in the morning or as soon as the sun comes up after you wake up. And the third one is delaying caffeine, because we don't want to be blocking those receptors, and caffeine is another thing that further drives up that cortisol. So we want to make sure that the caffeine is delayed. Now, what was I doing wrong in my perfect morning routine? I was doing coffee first thing. And then once I learned this, I was like, why did I feel worse on the days that I did my special morning routine? Well, on the days that you actually have caffeine first thing and then work out, it actually exacerbates the energy dip in the afternoon. It makes it worse than if you had not worked out at all. So on days where you are going to have caffeine in the morning and then work out, make sure you have allotted time in the afternoon for a nap or non-sleep deep rest or some really deep recovery to help, because the energy dip in the afternoon is going to be more profound. So what did I shift? Well, I now wake up in the morning, I go straight into my workout, I then follow it with a walk in the sun, I do my cold shower, and then I have my cup of coffee. And honestly, this can be anywhere from 90 minutes post-wake up all the way to 3 hours post-wake up. but it is amazing not having that energy crash in the afternoon. So the other cool thing is also seeing what happened to my heart rate variability, my HRV. That is my body's measure of stress, right? Of inflammation in the body. I have noticed since implementing this, my heart rate variability has consistently been going up. In fact, my average usually sits in the 60s, and I have been consistently hitting the 70s. Now, this is only a personal anecdote, but my clients have been seeing really cool things with their data as well. For example, one of my clients saw an increase in sleep latency in a good way. So if you haven't heard the term sleep latency before, it basically means how much time it takes you to fall asleep after you start to go to sleep. Like you turn the lights out, try to go to sleep. How long does it actually take your brain to fall asleep? Now, a healthy sleep latency is between 5 and 15 to 20 minutes. If you are taking longer than that, it likely means your brain is overstimulated and there may be adrenaline and cortisol in your system. If you fall asleep in less than 5 minutes, this actually isn't a good thing. It's a sign of feeling exhausted. So one of my clients was seeing that his sleep latency times were in that 2 to 3, 4 minute range. And after implementing this, the first week after he implemented this, there was consistently higher sleep latency times in the 8, 10, 12 minute sleep latency times. So while this isn't like a concrete research study and it is just an N equals 1, a subject study of 1, what this may suggest is that he was not feeling so exhausted when he got to bed that he literally passed out when he hit the pillow. That afternoon energy crash may have been eliminated or made more stable and had him not feeling so exhausted at the end of the day. So these are all really cool things. Now, how can you implement this into your life? Now, you can do the way I did, and I just was like, sure, 90 minutes, let's go, because I'm always willing to feel the discomfort and go through that. That's just the way I like to do things, and I always know if I don't love it, I can change it. So option 1, you can just wait an hour and a half to have coffee. Not a problem. Option number 2 is you can move your first caffeine exposure back by 15 minutes every couple of days. So even if you moved it back every day by 15 minutes, at the end of the week, you would be 90 minutes out from wake up and you would be in a much better place than when you started. So that's a more gradual approach. And if you are the type of person that is like, absolutely not, that will never work for me, or if you're like another one of my clients and you have a schedule in which at that 90-minute post mark, you are doing something for your work in which you have to have your hands free, you can't have a coffee or something like that, what you can always do is have half of your coffee when you wake up and then delay the other half of the coffee, like have it an hour later instead of having it all in the first 15 to 20 minutes. So there's lots of ways to go about this, but if you are a caffeine drinker that is always first thing in the morning drinking your coffee and you do struggle with that afternoon energy dip, a crash, a decline in alertness level that is not just a natural, the day has gone on, I'm getting more tired. I'm talking about, when you feel like you hit a wall, it's affecting your productivity, it's affecting your focus. This is the kind of one I want you to take action on. So I'm going to invite you to delay that caffeine intake and then, of course, reach out to me on Instagram. I'm at Tanessa Shears and tell me all about it. And if you're struggling with figuring out how it's going to fit into your routine, I'd love to chat with you about that on Instagram too. I'm always down for nerding out on all of the biohacking things to help double our energy and our focus. So I hope this has been helpful for you. If you would be so kind, if you could hit review on iTunes and Spotify and leave a 5-star review and maybe what your favorite thing you've learned from this podcast is, I would be super grateful because this podcast is my baby and I really just love hearing your feedback. And it also helps, of course, reach other entrepreneurs like you who really want to optimize the way their brain and body work with a little bit of biohacking so that we can buy back our productivity and our efficiency and spend that time doing something we love. Have a great week, you guys. I'll talk to you next time. Bye. Hey, if you're hearing me right now, you might be an entrepreneur who feels like this.
Every single thing I had was going into my businesses and there was no room left for me. And that means I wasn't eating right. My stress levels were just off the charts.
And I was getting these headaches and I just felt like my health was not where it could be, where it should be.
Every day I woke up really tired. And actually all day long I was tired and I couldn't understand why. And this was really in the way of my productivity.
I gained 20 pounds in 1 year, and that's mostly because of work stress. I've never seemed to have the control over my own health.
This podcast will help you with all of that. I'm sharing everything I know and everything I'm learning about how to get healthy, optimize your focus, and eliminate brain fog for faster business growth. But if you want someone to take all of these strategies, create a simple plan, and help you bring it to life with weekly coaching, I'd love to work with you in my Becoming Limitless program. This is the high-touch intensive program that I have created to coach entrepreneurs like you to get back on track with their health, get really good sleep, and start waking up feeling well-rested.
The biggest impact was really around overall well-being and sleep. So I started tracking my sleep, and it was very data-driven what we did. And I saw measurable progress and improvement week to week, month to month. Now I prioritize sleep. I have my whole family on a better sleep schedule.
You'll get my expert eyes on what you eat and help you develop a simple plan that sticks.
Well, she helped me really figure out what works for me nutrition-wise. It's not just like some cookie cutter plan. It's let's figure out what works best for your body and just optimize everything so I can show up at my best for my family, for my business, and just feel good.
And of course, have you showing up to your business with clear, focused thinking so you can scale your business faster.
Both my companies have grown over the last 2 years.
I'm waking up more energized and I'm able to be more productive in my business.
You're going to learn how to optimize your brain and your body using a combination of wearable technology, accountability, science-based biohacks, and weekly personalized coaching. I'm not only going to share what to do, but I'm going to teach you how to be consistent and develop the self-discipline that keeps this going for the rest of your life.
Coaching is where the magic really happens, because without coaching, you'll end up right where you started, because those blocks and those underlying patterns that got you here are still there. You have to really rewire the way you think, and that's what Tanessa helps you do. And it's good to have somebody who's got your back, who will hold you accountable and who will help you work through this process together.
I help you become a human being instead of just a human doing. You get to have your health and a successful business too. It doesn't have to be a choice.
So she really taught me a lot about how to balance being an entrepreneur and a business owner and also not sacrifice my health.
Yep, you can use the gold mine of information in these free episodes of the Becoming Limitless podcast to help you take control of your health, and you will feel more vibrant. But if you want, you can outsource your health to me and put your brain power back on growing your business. If you're ready to commit to upgrading your health and start feeling more energized within the next couple of months, click the link in the show notes and book in a consultation call with me.
My life today is not even recognizable with the life I had a year ago. And that's because of everything that Tanessa has put into the program. So if you're on the fence, get off the fence. Your future self will thank you for it.
Highly suggest working with Tanessa.
I would highly suggest doing a consultation call with her, doing her program, seeing what she's about, and seeing if she's a good fit for you, because she is definitely committed to her clients and she definitely knows what she's talking about.
So go work with Tanessa. She's really amazing and she's going to help you get your energy back.
Hit the link in the show notes and book in to talk with me about your health, and I'll see you on our first call.